We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, if you need just a little bit of extra college football content to get you through the days, to get you through the nights, subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Share it with your psychiatrist. Share it with your priest. Share it with your significant other. Share it across all your personal social media platforms. Welcome in to the studio. Welcome into the home that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend in your comments and in your phone calls. Welcome in. Holy smokes. Cloak and dagger. Cloak and dagger. Cloak and dagger. We are live. We are live. Breaking news. Well, it's not really breaking news. If you've been part of the PATC community, we've been talking about it the last two live shows. We told you, I reported it to you. I did it with a smile. The talks have been going on, have started going on between Oregon and Washington and the BigTen. And as you know, we've been pounding the table that the interest has always been there. It has remained. It wasn't just Kevin Warren, but there were difficulties about expanding further. One of those difficulties was Kevin Warren. There was other ones. There was the legal ramifications. There still is that. We're waiting for Arizona decision. Wow. Everything is coming to light. Kind of like what we gave you an accurate peek around the corner. We did not flip-flop back and forth. We told you, Oregon and Washington are the targets for Big Ten further expansion here in the near future or 5 years from now. But it looks like the dominoes are falling for Washington and Oregon to become the 17th and 18th member. Also, Stanford and California. How real is that? They're not in the same realm as Oregon and Washington. Those talks, they're not in the same spot as Oregon and Washington. Oregon and Washington have been cleared and vetted. They've had all their talks reported by the great Brett McMurphy. Did you see Brett McMurphy's tweet right before we came on? Did you see that tweet? There's a little bit of an extra in that one. Let's get to it. For those, first of all, everybody, thank you who got in the chat room early here. Let me try to get through some names. We got a lot to cover. Skull Ducky, James Foster, Baylor's Patrick. Thank you for coming on in. Kaufman, Randy Tate, Kylie Visser, Skull Ducky. Hey, Duck fans, listen up. Who's been telling you? Who's been telling you? All the way back to episode 52 or before that. But who's been telling you? Husky fans, who's been telling you? Who's never gone off the beam one time and letting you know that there was a faction, Big Ten interest, Fox Sports wanted you in the Big Ten? We told no lies here at Peek Around the Corner. And man, did we get the arrows. Holy smokes. Immaculate is in the house. Daniel Deal, Larry M, Merc Day Gamer, Tony B, Wowzer, Dan Cleary, Cinda Boss is in the house. David Hackett, Provo Cougar fan, Buckshot Kid, good afternoon, Greg. Western Virginia guy, goodbye Pac-12. So much stuff going on. We got to get to the story. Chris Kenny, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate your generosity to this channel. Let's not waste any more time. We've got a lot to do. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? Let's go with the Pete Thamel. Now, this stuff is just happening, right? I did not have time to do capture pictures, images, and have a nice, clean cut show for you. We're just going. We're going by the seat of our pants. We're scrambling here. We're scrambling. Pete Thamel, per Dan Wetzel. Can you guys see that? Let me pop this up here. Okay. Like I say, we are scrambling. I do apologize to everybody in the PATC community. Pete Thamel. Report on Big Ten expansion talks. Sources indicated earlier this week that Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti was doing due diligence on Oregon and Washington. Those have intensified in last recent days, as we reported to you all here at Peek Around the Corner. Last night's show, the night before that. But the key remains Big Ten doesn't want to be predatory, would only move if other dominoes fall in the Pac-12. So these are preliminary talks. Now, they've already had extensive talks with Oregon and Washington months and months and months ago. Big Ten met with Washington in New York City. The Big Ten met with Oregon, I believe, I can't remember. I don't think, it might have been Washington, D.C. I don't think it was Chicago. But either way, the Big Ten met with both Oregon and Washington in two different cities. They've been vetted and cleared. Now, I just want to pop up something here. I got to find it. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Then we're going to get to Dan Wetzel's article. But y'all got to be a little bit patient here. We're flying by the seat of our pants. Keep your head on a swivel. Put it in the chat. news, breaking news, put it in there, and we will investigate. This is the one. This is the one I wanted to show you. This is the one that I wanted to show you. Brett McMurphy. Listen to this. PATC. Listen to this. A group of Big Ten presidents have started exploratory discussions on expansion in light of the Pac-12 uncertainty, Dan Wenzel reports. Last August, Action Network reported that Big Ten had vetted and cleared Oregon and Washington to join league if it made financial sense. Those discussions slowed considerably during the commissioner change, but now have re-engaged. Now listen to this. Big Ten presidents considering Oregon and Washington, along with Stanford and Cal. And here's the money shot. Here's the money shot of the Brett McMurphy's tweet. While also keeping an eye on if any teams leave the ACC, sources told Action Network. There's so many layers to this. There are so many layers to this. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Oh, this leaks. Now, we said it, peek around the corner. We said this last night's show, the night before. We told you, I gave you guys a smile. You can go back and look how I did it. We know this has been going on. But this leaks, national report. The day of Florida State with their Board of Trustees meeting. After the chair, Peter Collins, had that interview yesterday with War Chant, an incredible interview done by War Chant. Congratulations to those gentlemen. You see what's going on here? You see what's going on here? I can't wait to get to your comments. I can't wait to get to your phone calls. Unbelievable. Now, I'm going to get to the story. I'm going to get to the story right now. Got to give me time. Give me a little more patience. I'll get to your comments and phone calls. Dan Wenzel. Yahoo Sports sources Big Ten has begun preliminary talks to potentially add Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. The Big Ten has begun exploratory discussions about expanding membership to 18 or even 20 teams. Industry sources have told Yahoo Sports. The schools are being considered are Oregon and Washington if the league adds 2 schools, and California, Stanford if it wants to move to 20. All 4 institutions are currently members of the Pac-12. As we said to start the show, and we've been saying this forever, Oregon and Washington, they are on a separate plateau of interest from the Big Ten, and we've made this so clear for months, and Fox Sports. You guys understand what we've been saying? Do you think Fox Sports had incentive to make a deal with the Pac-12 here in the last year? No, they did not. Fox Sports has wanted Oregon and Washington. Yes, they wanted the city of Los Angeles. Yes, they got what they wanted, UCLA and USC. But again, people, for whatever reason, they kind of shut down. They don't have any curiosity. They said if Washington and Oregon did not go to the Big Ten at that point, then they're not going. Wrong logic. That's not how the real world works. Oregon and Washington has always been targeted. Oregon has always been wanted. Boy, I hope that's clear now. I mean, I even had Oregon Ducks Washington fans coming after me because they think I sold them a bill of goods. No, I did not. This has always been true. The Big Ten was never going to expand, was never going to be a 20-team league or 24-team league with only 2 schools west of Lincoln, Nebraska. Back to the article. The discussions are in the very early stages. Sources caution. No decision, including on whether to expand or stay put at 6 teams, has been made or is considered imminent. All that, I believe, is true. A lot of work to be done. Someone's got to pay the freight. The Big Ten may also patiently wait to see what happens with other Pac-12 schools and their potential move to the Big 12 before acting at all. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Well, first of all, they need to wait. They need for the Pac-12 to be cracked open again by the Big 12, something that we've been reporting to you for months. However, ballooning the league to as many 20 teams, to as many as 20 teams by adding a 6-team West Coast flank, including 2024 rivals USC and UCLA, is a real possibility. And I know Immaculate is in the chat room. I know Monavision, if he's not in, he's coming in. The reason why the 6-team West Coast flank is vital to the Big Ten. If they're going to go to 24, which they're going to at some point, the 6 West Coast teams flank, that's going to be needed. That's going to be wanted. This is a real possibility. This is especially true of the Pac-12, which dates back to 1915, falls apart in the near future. A group of 4 Big Ten university presidents began the preliminary process on Wednesday, the day prior. The Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff presented a media rights package to his membership that was heavy on games and appearing on Apple Plus, blah, blah, blah. We told you on our live show last night, it happened Wednesday before Colorado made it official. We gave you the exact date. Watch the show last night. We said it with a smile here at Peek Around the Corner. Do we know all the Big Ten university presidents that were in discussions? We know one of them. We know one of them. We know one of them, and we know we got a real good hunch of a particular athletic director that was in those discussions. And it was not the University of Minnesota athletic director. It was somebody else. This is real. We gave you a peek. By comparison, well, we don't even have to go through those numbers. We know about that. With the Pac-12 at risk of splintering, Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford renewed their push to the Big Ten, seeking a safe and far richer harbor for athletic programs starting in 2024. Okay, we don't have to go through the rest. I'm going to say this right now. I am not 100, you know this, Peek Around the Corner. I am not 100%. I think California has a lot of work to do. And I think Stanford has a lot of work to do. And I think there might be a couple other Pac-12 schools. I know there's at least one of them that has been calling the Big Ten. That's not named Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and California. So yes, there's interest from the Big Ten presidents, of course, because of academic reasons. But it ain't locked up. My brothers and sisters in the PATC community, and then you got the ACC. Brett McMurphy put it out there. I'm going to show it again. Then I'll get to your comments. I apologize. But look. We got to do the whole thing, guys. Brett McMurphy. A group of Big Ten presidents have started exploratory discussions in light of Pac-12 uncertainty. Oregon and Washington to join the league if it made financial sense. Those discussions slowed, but now have re-engaged. The Big Ten presidents are considering Oregon, Washington, along with Stanford and Cal. And here's the money shot of the whole live show. While also keeping an eye on if any teams leave the ACC. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the Big Ten is interested. Of course they're interested. But it looks like they're willing to take whatever risk there is to grabbing a school, a Florida State, a Clemson. Again, don't think it's happening this week. Like we said earlier in the week in one of our episodes, this is a message, a shot across the bow, a message to Florida State. Brett McMurphy doesn't tweet anything lightly. Okay. All right, let's get to your comments. You guys know how this works. The little general, I'm in my break. Good job, honey. Thank you, honey. Appreciate it. We got to go through, I think, a Cal and Stanford are locks for the Big Ten. That's Lannis 31. Stanford is still struggling with NIL. Stanford's going to have to sell themselves. Yes, they're great, an incredible university, California, but they're going to have to sell themselves to be 18, to be 19 and 20, and then you got the ACC breakup. California, Stanford, they're going to have to bring it, and then there's some other Pac-12 schools that may get in there. They may get a shot. That may get an audience, and I believe they already have. Stanford brings Notre Dame later. Thank you for your super chat. Utah calling the Big Ten off the hook. Anthony Palika. Thank you for your super chat. That is accurate, Anthony. That is accurate. Utah has been working the phones. Utah has been working the phones. Utah has been working the phones. If you go back to our live show last night or the previous live show, we gave you the date that this started, the Wednesday before the Thursday, that Colorado made it official. And now it's just reported that that was the date. Stay with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Stay with us. We're dropping intel any chance we can possibly, and sometimes we can't get into it, sometimes we can. Let me catch up on the super chats. I do apologize. I'm talking too much. Kenneth Stromness, when the Big 12 goes to 16 teams, would the additional inventory be able to go to the market to sell more of the third tier rights, or no, go BYU? I have no idea. A lot of the third tier rights are going to go right into ESPN Plus. That's part of the package. So that's the best answer I can give you. I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer. John, thank you for your super chat. FSU, Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson, +4, PAC equals Kings of the NCAA. Obviously, I think we can now come to a consensus. The Big Ten is probably going to hit that 24 number, and it might take a few years. Stanford and Cal might not get in the boat. I believe Oregon and Washington are going to get in the boat once we see the Pac-12 get cracked open again, and we might see that today officially, or tomorrow officially, or next week, whenever it happens. And then I think you're going to see Tony Petitti and the lawyers and everybody really get into it. Preliminary talks means indirect talks. in my opinion. People representing the Big Ten, Tony Petitti. But once the Pac-12 gets that cracked open once again, then the big guns will come out with the Big Ten. Then they're going to have direct meetings once again. And a lot of work has been done between Washington and Oregon and the Big Ten. Cleared and vetted. And Fox Sports approves. That's the big major component to this. And then they're going to have to get somebody to pay the freight for it. And then you got Florida State out there. Sergeant Pickles, we may be trading the dagger for the guillotine soon. Wow. Trading the dagger for the guillotine. Woo! Look at that phrasing. Sergeant Pickles, thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate your generosity. I appreciate everybody's generosity. Open the war chest. Big Ten Network. Stanford is a lock. Feeble effort by Oregon here. I don't know. Seems like I was the only one standing up for Oregon's chances of getting in the Big Ten. And I think history is going to be very kind to us. Yes, everybody press that like button. We would appreciate it here at Peek Around the Corner. Oregon is doing work right now in the press. They obviously put this out there. In this case, I don't think it was Oregon that put it out there. I don't. Because there was a whole bunch of other stuff that was mentioned. Brett McMurphy mentioned the ACC angle. That Wetzel article, it's not just about Oregon. This is the Big Ten putting it out there. This is the Big Ten putting it out there. And some of us knew about the communications on Wednesday before the Thursday that they just reported. This has been sort of bubbling on the surface. And now it's out there. Big Ten not going to Oregon and Washington when they can go east. Mid-Florida Academy. The Big Ten is going to Oregon and Washington so they can go out east. I'm going to repeat that. And we've been saying that for a year at Peek Around the Corner. The Big Ten is going to go west again because they want to go east. You're not going to have a 20-team Big Ten conference or a 24-team Big Ten conference with only 2 schools west of Lincoln, Nebraska. We've said it 1,000 times on this show. The Big Ten wants to go east. They're going to go east. At some point, they're going to be successful at grabbing some ACC schools, but they got to go west. They got to go west again. It's going to be a national conference. Hopefully, interests are balanced throughout the national conference. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be very lucrative. But whatever this composition looks like, it's not going to be just 2 teams west of Lincoln. That's not how this was ever going to work. You still think that Oregon and Washington will soften the Gore blow for FSU? That theory was out there. We talked about it in a couple live shows ago, that bringing in Oregon and Washington might be able to grease the skids a little bit for Florida State. For the networks to pay such and such a number for an Oregon and Washington, and then Oregon and Washington come as a discount, and some of that money, the Big Ten war chest, gives Florida State some money to keep them above the stratification line while they fight the Gore in the courts. That's a theory. That's a theory that was put out months ago. We reported it. We're not saying that. We're definitely not reporting that it's going to happen that way. If it's so lucrative and so great, why didn't the Big Ten do it a year ago? Or June 30th, 2023, or the date? Because CFB Plus, because the legal counsel of the Big Ten did not want to have they did not want to have the complete blood on their hands of the destruction of the Pac-12. With the Big 12 cracking open the Pac-12, this makes it a lot easier for the Big Ten, and we've been saying that for months and months and months. Plus, Big Ten has to find a media partner to pay the freight on this. I happen to believe it's going to be Amazon. CBS, NBC, and Fox are going to have to kick in some more extra money. The Big Ten presidents, some of those schools are going to have to know that they're still going to be whole, that their slice of the revenue is not going to be diluted in this process. Many of the schools are still going to want that linear exposure guaranteed to them, at least some of it, through expansion. So there's work to do. But the interest has always been there. We reported when Kevin Warren left the commissioner's office, that was the number one hurdle for near future Big Ten expansion. That was the number one hurdle. Big Ten was not going to expand with Kevin Warren in his chair in the Big Ten office. Why? Because Fox Sports did not want to deal with them anymore. Why? Because Kevin Warren lost the trust with the Big Ten presidents. Horrific communication, no consensus building. But Kevin Warren was gone. But still, there were big hurdles. The next one was the legal hurdle. With the Pac-12 now getting cracked open, and again, I think it's about to happen again, that legal hurdle is now going away. There's two more hurdles left for an Oregon and Washington. You got to swing the Big Ten presidents around. You got to say, look, this is what the future is. It's better for us on a cost-benefit analysis to expand now with Oregon, Washington instead of waiting. We're going to go east again, so this is our chance for a true 24-school national conference. And then you'd have to have the money to do so. You have to have the money. Somebody's got to be interested. And we reported, now I need everybody to listen up on this. And then we'll get to the phone calls. On last night's show, when we repeated what we said to you the night before, that Oregon and Washington has started talks with the Big Ten, and that was the day before Thursday, of the Colorado's Thursday. We also said in that same live show that Amazon, I'm trying to put this in a way that gives you all a peek while protecting our sources. There's a couple reasons why Amazon did not get part of the Big Ten media package. But one of the reasons was a particular person in leadership across the Big Ten Conference, not in the Big Ten commissioner staff. We're talking one of the schools in leadership, who basically put his thumb down on Amazon having part of the media package. That person is no longer in his position. That person is no longer employed by a Big Ten university. So, this is why I think Amazon is going to get back in this game. And if they are willing to pay the freight for Oregon and Washington and potentially California, Stanford, or potentially Stanford or Utah, or potentially on and on and on and on, we'll see. Please pull up Rittenberg's tweet. Thank you, Nick Jones, for your super chat. Let me get to it. Thank you for the heads up. He's done this before. Hold on. I know where this is going. I'm going to have to okay. I'm sorry. I thought this was going someplace else. A lot of things are going on here. Woo! Okay. My apologies. My apologies for the wait. Thanks for being patient. Adam Rittenberg, Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, told me a week ago the league isn't focused on expanding beyond USC and UCLA, but he's responsible for informing presidents about what they'd likely to see and expect. The Pac-12 situation has changed things. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. And we said if the Pac-12 gets cracked open, that this was going to happen. That's why when Tony Petitti at the Big Ten Media Day said the following: our presidents have only given me direction about inboarding USC and UCLA. We did not overreact here at Peek Around the Corner. We still told you all that Oregon and Washington was right there if the Pac-12 gets cracked open again. I hope that was the tweet that you guys wanted me to post. Rittenberg again, the potential West Coast additions to the Big Ten wouldn't come into the league with full revenue shares like USC and UCLA did, per sources. So it would be more in the Rutgers, Maryland plan from 2014. Certainly still stronger money than the Pac-12 seemingly is offering, but a factor. I don't think it's much of a factor at all. I think Oregon and Washington has been anticipating this for a long time. And I think the shares are going to be really good money for Oregon and Washington. You remember, they're going to get some. They're not going to be fully invested owners of the Big Ten Network, but they're going to come in as partial owners, just like every other Big Ten school has done except for USC and UCLA. Even the original Big Ten schools, when the Big Ten Network was created, every Big Ten school at that time took no money, no network money for the first 3, 4, 5 years because they had to go back to the Big Ten, all that revenue to pay off the sugar daddy of Fox Sports. Only USC and UCLA have come in as full members of the Big Ten Network. So Oregon and Washington are going to take the deal. They're going to take the deal. Okay. We gotta get to your phone calls. And hopefully I haven't missed. I'm missing super chats. I apologize. Country Roads, thank you for your super chat. I appreciate your generosity. Arizona State, Oregon State would give the Big 12 all 4 time zones. Utah is probably chasing the Big Ten invite, as you seem to be reporting. I'm going to make it clear. Utah is chasing a Big Ten invite. They're chasing a Big Ten invite. Can they, if the Big Ten goes to 20, And this is not counting what's going on in ACC country. Can Utah cut in line in front of California? I think they're I know they're taking the shot. I know they're taking the shot. How likely? Less than 50%, maybe less than 20%, but they're taking the shot. They're taking the shot. Florida State board meeting begins at, it begins in 10 minutes. It begins in 10 minutes. So, if something happens, if something pops, if something gets reported, keep your head on a swivel. Let me know in the chat. We'll get to it as soon as we can. If UCLA has any influence, Cal gets in over Utah. Great point. Great point. Now, UCLA and USC don't have votes until July 1st, 2024. But they do have influence. But, again, Jasper puts it, Washington 90%, Stanford 40%, Cal 10%, Utah 10%. Again, let me make something clear. We've said this again probably 100 times. In the voice of majority opposition, USC never had a veto over further big Pacific Coast expansion for the Big Ten. They don't have veto. They just don't. Yes, USC is a tremendous brand, a powerful university. Big Ten, that was their target number one. But USC did not come into the conference and say, oh, by the way, we are only joining the Big Ten if you all promise that you don't expand with more Pacific Coast schools. We told you that up front. We kept telling you that. We also said, look, why would the Buckeyes, why would the Nittany Lions, why would the Wolverines, why would they want USC and UCLA with all that Big Ten money, all that Big Ten exposure, have all these recruiting grounds all to themselves? I'm not saying all to themselves because, of course, other Big Ten schools are going to recruit the Pacific Coast. They've always have. They always will. They've been successful. But you know what I mean. Why would they let USC and UCLA have all that? Have all that advantage? Having all that money over all the other Pacific Coast schools out there. Like two foxes in a huge hen house full of chickens. I think there's incentive to put a couple more foxes in there. Not to have UCLA and USC become such big foxes. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Oh, that's a killer. Oh, that hurts. Oregon is on its way. Flugs, you know what you want. Oregon at Minnesota next year. So you can see Bucky Irving scoring touchdowns in Gopher Stadium again. Go Ducks. That would just kill me. That would just annihilate me. That would absolutely destroy me. And here's another thing, Jason Miller. Jason Miller and everybody else in the chat. Think about what the Big Ten what the structure is going to look like if the Big Ten adds 4 Western schools right now to go to 20 with 6 West Pacific Coast schools. Is it still going to be a 20-team conference with no divisions? Probably for 2024. But going on in 2025, 2026, I got to believe this is going to go to 24. I got to believe there's going to be 4 divisions of 6 teams. I got to believe there's going to be a semifinal weekend. That's going to be your 10th conference game. I got to believe that on that semifinal weekend that the second place schools of each division will play each other. The third place schools will play each other. The fourth place schools will play each other. The fifth and the sixth place schools will play each other across divisions. It's not going to be a scheduled game. It's going to be an open date. You're going to know if you're going to have it home or away than semifinal weekend. And the schools that get first place, they're going to be playing each other in semifinal weekend. And it's going to be a division that you didn't have. A division in the Pacific Coast is not going to have any games played, let's say, with the teams in the East. And therefore, those top teams are going to play each other in the semifinal weekend. This stuff has been gamed out, talked about by the Big Ten for years. For years. So start thinking about all that stuff. Now, none of this is just talking. They're just talking. Well, a lot of thought has gone into all of this. And the Big Ten was waiting to see if the Pac-12 was going to get cracked open. Not once, as we reported to you. Colorado was not enough. They're waiting to see if Arizona jumps. And if Arizona jumps, and if they jump soon, holy smokes theater, we're going to have 3 plays going on. We're going to have the Big Ten play. 3 plays going on at the PAT, holy smokes theater. It's already wild. It's crazy. It's going to get more. Watch the Arizona. If that happens, these preliminary talks are going to be direct talks. Jonathan Weaver, thank you so much for your super chat. Big Ten West, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Utah. Big Ten Plains, Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern. Big Ten Lakes, Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan State and Notre Dame. Holy smokes. We haven't even talked about Notre Dame on this show. Shame on me. Shame on me. We'll get to that in a second. Indiana and Purdue. Big Ten East, Florida State, Clemson, Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, and Miami. Holy smokes. Jonathan Weaver coming in with the heat. Thank you for your super chat. Thank you for your generosity to this channel. Big Ten, waiting. And what happens with the ACC? According to Brett McMurphy's tweet, if you got Florida State and Clemson bolting before August 15th of this year, that means they got a landing spot. That means they got a landing spot somewhere in 2024. That Brett McMurphy tweet gives us a big hint that there's been talks, indirect talks, between the Seminoles and Patini. Think about that. Think about that. And possibly Florida State and Clemson to the SEC. Think about that. We got to get to your phone calls. David Floyd, so ESPN's just going to allow this? I don't know, man. Great question, Mr. Floyd. Maybe not. Maybe they strike back. Maybe they get up to the bargaining table with Florida State and Clemson. Guide them into the SEC. But then that hurts ESPN's property of the ACC network. But Notre Dame's got to be watching all this. Notre Dame's got to be watching all of this. ACC implodes. Notre Dame's got to get a ticket to the Big Ten, I would think. Again, we sit here. We are an Arizona away. We are an Arizona Wildcat away from everything breaking loose, shattering in a million pieces. An Arizona Wildcat away. If they go, Cameron B., Florida State board members mentioned staying or going. Thank you, Cameron B. Thank you, sir. Keep us updated. Thank you for your super chat. Thank you for your generosity. I thank you so very much. Keep us updated. Keep us updated here at Peek Around the Corner. Smash that like button. Smash it. Every team can't win, though. Every conference needs their Californias, their Indianas. Tusami Warning is absolutely correct. Like I said last night, all these big brand football teams coming in the Big Ten. I can see my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers going 2-10 as far as the eye can see. And I don't know why I'm laughing. I should be crying. Every conference needs their Washington Generals against the Harlem Globetrotters. There's going to be a lot of Washington Generals. They're going to get paid a lot of money. You're absolutely correct, Tusami Warning. Every hot guy needs his Gopher. Boo. Boo. Where's my... Okay. Gophers 10-2. Row the boat. Tony comes back. Gophers to the Big 12. Oh, come on. Pickman, that's not going to happen. Must join the most fun conference. Okay. We got to get to your phone calls. I got a whole bunch of... my phone's blowing up. I got direct messages off the chain. Let's get to your phone calls before I lose sanity here. Let me get it open. What do you think? California, Stanford? Are there serious contenders to be the 19th and 20th Big Ten school? Brett McMurphy, the Big Ten's keeping an eye on what happens in ACC country if any school leaves, like Florida State, like Clemson. 763-260-1333.
Call from
Immaculate.
Holy smokes. It got leaked. It got put out there. The day that Florida State's having a meeting, I don't think it's by accident. We've known that they've been talking to her recently. We knew the date was Wednesday. It is pure insanity in the college football landscape. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, on one hand, it's kind of like, well, we knew this was coming. It was impossible to kind of predict and foresee how it's going to come on. And then when you're here, getting caught up in it, it's very exciting stuff. And I just got to say, there are no coincidences anymore. And, the leaks are coming hot and heavy because those are states, right? Like the Washington, Oregon, California, Stanford leak. That's interesting. It's definitely telling us, hey, we're looking to go to 20. We've had these conversations. I personally believe that Washington is the one that the Big Ten absolutely wants to preserve out west. I've always thought that there's at least a +1, whether that's Oregon or someone else. An interesting thing put forward here in some private chats we got going on. Ryan actually said this, so I'll give him credit. It's interesting that they didn't say Arizona State or Utah, and that they said Stanford and California.
Yeah.
With all the talk about maybe Arizona State or Utah could get in there, they're not in this, and they could have said them just as well. So I think if you're Arizona State or Utah, I said this with you yesterday, but I'm reiterating it now, they need to go talk to the Big 12 and soon.
Well, they've been talking to the Big 12.
Of course, but I mean, like, if there's been any, like, hey, we might get into the Big Ten, maybe we shouldn't just jump over there just yet, I think that was an answer.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That leak was an answer to Utah.
And Arizona State.
Okay. That could be.
Yeah. Because they could have been listed there, right? Like, hey, we're looking at these schools too. I mean, but they're not listed.
Or the Big Ten does not want to get into Big 12's space right now. Like, they didn't want to cause a dust storm. Right when they want the Big 12 to crack open the Pac-12 one more time, if the Big Ten had any inkling of interest in the Utah, I don't think they would leak it today. I'm just going to put that out there.
But I think kind of to continue the point, and
Yep.
hopefully Ryan calls it and kind of explains his point even more. But
Yep.
they could always. This is going to come off wrong with some folks, but they could look at those in the future. Part of my plan that I didn't really want to go into too much is the 25-5.
Yep.
I think that we're looking at 20 as the short term, 25 is the future, 5 divisions. You get to 20, which is 5 divisions of 4. And then you have to look at one more school in each of those geographic divisions for entry later on if the money's right. Once you've instituted playoffs, once you've instituted different other things to make more money. And so, if you got a Colorado, an Arizona State, and a Utah that's in the Big 12 and they're playing for a few years, you see, okay, who does well there and who doesn't.
Yeah.
But I actually really don't think Stanford and Cal are strongly looked at. I just think involving their names in this allows you to make the point that we are looking at 20, and that's
I think you're onto something there. I think that's a great point.
You came out with Nick Murphy later because they do this in waves. Like this person says this and that person says that. Yeah. And he brings up the ACC. Well, we're looking for a team to leave. Like, oh, I wonder who they're talking about.
Yeah. By the way, the Big Ten just came out with a statement. I'm going to read it real quick, Immaculate. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
The Big Ten Conference is still focused on the integration of USC and UCLA, but it's also the commissioner's job to keep conference chancellors and presidents informed about new developments as they occur. That's it.
Yeah, I mean it's basically we're open across the board and we are open for business.
Yes. Yeah.
And they cannot in the situation going on in the Southeast, they can't say Florida State and Clemson directly, and it looks like they don't even want to say them indirectly through their mouthpiece. But that little bit that McMurphy throws in, we know who they're talking about. And if Florida State and Clemson leave, or Florida State and Miami or whoever, 2 schools leave there and they're sitting out there, does the Big Ten take Stanford and California over them? I can't see that in any case.
No. I agree.
For folks wondering on that, like I said, I think Washington is an absolute for the Big Ten for lots of reasons. They do have a serious football program there, and they do have serious following. They're a serious institution with massive research that the Big Ten is definitely going to want to get into. And if you allow them to go to next season with no media deal or an almost all streaming media deal with very little visibility, that could cause significant damage to them in terms of, recruiting, donations, following, watching. I just think if that's something that you're planning to do in the future, you might have to do that sooner than you were expecting to. And so for folks that don't see why this is happening now, I'm kind of with them. It's like, yeah, maybe they should have done this sooner or whatever, but I just think that the way things are progressing, it's kind of forcing moves to happen sooner. Like, who would you have ever thought that this would happen this year? I mean, even all of our hints from like Herb Street were for next year.
Yes. In fact, I was watching one of those Florida. I was watching War Chant today, this morning, and they kept saying we thought this was going to be next year. And December 26th, 2022, when we had that live show, and we said the Florida State Money Perch told us that Florida State was going to say something in a couple of months from now. We reported that it was going to be first quarter of 2024. So I think they just moved up what they were going to do. They moved up their plan. And now, in the Big Ten, obviously, has known that maybe Florida State was going to do this. Kirk Herbstreit, like you said, people have been dropping hints, and now we're about to get the bomb. And I said on Twitter earlier today, I said, and I want to know what you think about this, Immaculate. I said, Florida State can only do this brinkmanship one time. They only can go up and gather this this steam, this inertia, saying, we're going to go, we're going to go, we're going to go, drop all these hints. Please negotiate with us. Please negotiate with us. We're going to do it. And if they pull back and they don't pull the trigger by August 15th, they can't come back next spring and do this all over again. I mean, they can act, they can do it, they can pull the trigger, but they can't play the brinkmanship game next spring. So this is a one-time shot for Florida State to get what they want without having to go to the courts, without having to risk. And so this is it. So in other words, Immaculate, I think they're going for it. I think they're going to do it. All this bluster and not pull the trigger, what does that give them?
I agree with you, and I posted a reply to that tweet of yours. I said, you don't want to become the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
You don't want it next year. The bluff, I don't want to call it a bluff. The play doesn't have the same weight to it.
Yeah.
Whereas it does right now. And so I think that they're real. I'm watching this right now on another screen, by the way, and they're just going over investment numbers and general business.
Okay.
But the head of War Chant is actually there locally taking notes. So he's definitely very interested in there. I think the part that matters is going to be coming up later, and they might try to sneak it in after all the general business.
Sure.
That's kind of what I'm hearing, that the big stuff that folks are hoping for is going to get added on at the end. We'll see.
Or it won't be today. I mean,
or won't be today.
Yeah,
But
Peter Collins, he sort of let us know, didn't he, last night, that action wasn't expected for tomorrow, which is today.
Yeah, and that might be why he decided to come out and do that interview, is there was so much expectation starting to be put on that.
Yeah.
That he wanted to say this is real, but don't expect it. Well, he would have said tomorrow, but meaning today.
So let me ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you another question. I just read a little bit of the Athletic. There does seem to be some sort of. I might be reading too much into the tweets and what I just read from Nicole Auerbach, but it looks like this is going to be, if Arizona jumps, and we all think they will. It looks like this is going to go to 18 to 20. This isn't going to go past 20 this time. So in other words, if Florida State says, yes, we're going, and they bring another team, let's say Clemson, this could be what the rumors were saying, Washington, Oregon, Florida State, and Clemson. And there isn't going to be a Stanford or a California in this realignment wave, unless, of course, Notre Dame jumps out. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm sticking to my guns on it, and then in the end, I might be wrong about Stanford, because I definitely think the Big Ten would take them at some point if Stanford wants to join. Even if it's just to be your final addition to a 5-team Western Division, that's your kick-around team. I mean, the benefits that they add to in other ways are so significant that, okay, you can come in here and lose every game every single year in football, and we really don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't think that Stanford wants that as much as some people think that they would.
Yeah.
There's other stuff that I see for them, but way too early for that.
Yeah.
But I do. I think you're right, and if that happens, I think people's natural tendency to not want to believe leaks when they come out, I think that's gone. Colorado put a massive hit on that, so people are starting to believe leaks. But if it really turns into Florida State, Clemson, Washington, and Oregon, I mean, I think at that point in time we got to see the stuff that's getting put out in these leaks is direct and it's on point, because that's a huge statement, and it went out everywhere. Media all over the place. I even saw it on MSN. So that was put out wide. That's not some Twitter guy putting out a leak. That's broad placement.
Yeah.
So someone was really trying to get a talking point out there. And
right at Florida State. Right when Florida State is having a meeting.
Yeah, it's all very coincidental, or it's not coincidental at all. I tend to go with that.
Yeah. Okay, Immaculate. I'm going to get to an article that was just posted by Dennis Dodd. I'm going to get to more phone calls. Thank you so much.
I'm going to kind of be paying half attention to you and half attention to this meeting over here.
Please, and put it in the chat or call again if something really pops, okay?
Sounds good, buddy.
Thanks,
good
buddy.
Talking to you.
All right.
Call from
ABO Prep Course 100.
Soap, is that you?
It is.
Okay, can you hold a second?
Absolutely.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm just gonna go
Take your
quickly,
time, Greg.
quickly go through this Dennis Dodd article to see if there's something here. It was just released. Big Ten examining potential additions of Oregon, Washington, California, and Stanford to the conference. It should be stressed that California and Stanford are not a priority right now. The great Dan Wetzel first with this. Let me pop this open. Let's see if there's something there. I got too much stuff opened up here. Big Ten has started considering further additions to as many as 20 teams. So, they're not jumping to 24 here, guys. Sources tell CBS Sports, while Oregon, Washington, California, Stanford, all Pac-12 members are programs under consideration, it is Oregon and Washington that are the primary focus. Should the Big Ten choose to expand by 2 programs, making an 18-team conference. That's what we've been saying forever. Washington and Oregon are the top 2 targets. These talks are at the earliest stages for a league that had seemingly closed their door on further expansion. No further additions are imminent. However, with the Big 12 adding Colorado, Arizona State and Utah are now pondering similar moves to the Big 12. Should one or all 3 programs defect, the Pac-12 could be down. Oh, I'm getting all sorts of stuff here. Well, that's it. You guys get the point. It's Oregon, Washington. Oregon and Washington are the targets. California, Stanford are not priorities. I think the Big Ten's going to wait to see what happens with Florida State and potentially Clemson or some other ACC schools. Okay, Soap, the floor is yours. What's going on, sir?
Well, if I can just take a second, I got to tell you, I saw a picture of Justin Verlander on there, and I got to share this with you. I had the privilege last night to go see the Houston Astros play, and I got to see a Major League Baseball no-hitter. What a thrill that was!
Oh, and, wow!
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was amazing. But let's look at. I've been waiting several days to share this with you, and now is the time to do it. But at the end, I want to drop a bomb on you. But first, real quick, you have said from the beginning it's either going to be 5 weeks or 5 years before the expansion of the Big Ten out west. So we know that's going to happen.
And Washington and Oregon.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
What else do we know? We know that there's a crappy deal on the table for the Big Ten as far as dollars go and expansion. And we know that Arizona and Arizona State have nowhere else to go. So we can say from that Arizona and Arizona State are going to move to the Big 12. That's pretty much, in my opinion, that's a given.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. What not a lot of people are thinking of, and you touched on it, Greg, was the scheduling for 20-team leagues.
Yes,
and
sir.
If you look at the Big Ten, the Big Ten, you look at the Big 12, you look at what Brett Yormark said. He says, we want to increase excitement, revenue, and branding. And the way that you do that they're going to do that. And I think this is going to become the footprint for other conferences as well. So if you want to look at the Big Ten and the SEC doing this, it is removing two divisions, two separate divisions, and they're not divided by geography. They're divided by quality of teams. There is an upper division and a lower division. If you look at the upcoming, if we just took BYU, Utah, and the Arizona schools, Colorado, put them in the Big 12, you would have two divisions. In the top division, you'd have TCU, Texas Tech, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, BYU, Utah, Cincinnati, and UFC. Now, that's a lot of excitement because I'm going to be playing. I'm a Texas Tech alum. I'm going to be playing the best teams in the Pac-12 every year, and I know that if I win that upper division, I'm going to get a bye to the championship. But for a division like or a conference like the Big 12, I need to make sure that my second place team gets a bid also. And the only way I can do that is ensure that they're not playing Iowa State, that they're not playing, teams like Colorado or Arizona, so that you have this second division that has the lower end teams in it. They're playing each other, and that's more excitement for them because, frankly, a team like West Virginia might not have any chance. And I know no disrespect to the great fans of West Virginia, but they might go through a year where they don't have any chance of winning the upper division, but they can win the lower division. But here's what makes it exciting, Greg, is you can go from division to division. If you are the best team in the lower division, you would then play the two teams in the lower division that are the best two teams would play each other. Example, Baylor and U of H are in the lower division. They have the two best records in the lower division. Since the Alamo is going by the wayside because they were a affiliation with the Big 12 and the Pac, you could have the Alamo Bowl and sell that place out over and over for Baylor playing U of H to see who moves up in the conference. You could then have, let's say, Cincinnati playing OSU. They're the two low teams in the upper division. Who's going to move down for 1 year? You have the Liberty Bowl in Shreveport that it has the Pac in the Big 12 association that is going to go by the wayside. You could have that game be the deciding game of who moves down a division. Greg, I'm telling you, you would have at the end of the season, you would have three teams interested in who's going to win the championship for the to go to the playoffs. You'd have three teams interested in who's going to be playing in the game to move down, and you'd have three teams interested in who's going to be playing in the game to move up. It's going to build a lot of excitement. Now, how can I safely say that this is actually going to happen? And I'm not predicting that this is going to happen, Greg. And the reason I know this is because Brett Yarmark did exactly the same thing with NASCAR. He was the one who came up with the divisions in NASCAR and the Nextel Cup.
I'm going to tell you.
This is what
I'm going to tell you. The big bucket of cold water on that is the donors. Donors don't want anything to do with regulation. They're not going to be investing money in the program, and then the team has to fight regulation. That's why it might work in some professional leagues, but it's not going to happen in my strongly held opinion, it's not going to happen in this environment.
Okay, well, I don't know how you can have a 20-league team and still have everybody interested in as many games as possible, because you have these networks who are paying for these lower teams, the Arizona, Colorados, Iowa State. How are you going to keep their fans interested and watch? I think that if you have that relegation and move up every year, your team, no matter what position they're in, if they're in the lower division, they've got a chance to move up to the upper division. I guarantee you, the fans at Texas Tech, if we get moved down to the lower division, we're going to bust our ass to get moved back up, and we're going to spend money to do that. I just think that it's too exciting that it doesn't. That wouldn't happen. And you could keep your rivalry. There would be a one-game scheduling where you keep your rival.
Interesting concept.
Okay.
Yep. Appreciate the phone call.
Yeah. Let me drop one more thing on you if I can real quick. Okay.
Yep.
This is not a prediction. I'm just telling you I'm in Texas. I've got some friends that are pretty well connected. I'm not saying that they're talking about this on the high level. I'm telling you my friends who went to A&M, Texas A&M, who are up there, are talking about being interested in the Big Ten. They are not interested in being in the Big 12 or in the SEC any longer with Texas.
Yeah.
If they can be the only Big Ten team in Texas, they can have a recruiting coup.
Yeah.
And that's what they had in the SEC.
Yeah.
So leave space there maybe for Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's going to have a hard time with the 20 schedule. If they're not in a conference and there are 20 conference or 20 team divisions, they're going to have a hard time scheduling.
Yeah, they will.
They got to join a conference.
Yep.
Thank you so much for giving me a platform, Greg.
Got it. Appreciate it. Appreciate the phone call. Call again. Thank you, good sir.
You bet. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Phone lines are open. Not for long.
Call from
TH3, go Big Red.
I'm sorry. I didn't get the name.
TH3?
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dude. Look, I just subbed to you, I think, last week. I'm a Husker fan. I'd go Big Red in the name. I'm looking forward to our week 1 matchup.
Yeah.
Hopefully we beat you guys. We need something good for us.
Yeah.
But no, looking at it, the articles you pulled up, dude, you've been spot on a lot of this. I will say, that Rittenberg argument, like, my goodness, I thought Cal and Stanford were going to be high priorities, and I don't know why. I think it just dealt with their endowments. Are you familiar with their endowments by chance or no?
Yeah, they can buy pretty much the whole state of Minnesota. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought going in that, I know this is going to sound weird, I thought Oregon, Washington would be on the same level as Stanford, Cal, mostly just because they have the Bay Area, which has a lot of Big Ten alums, but then also just Silicon Valley, it gives you a foot in there.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe that could pull some leeway, but, who knows on that.
Well, there's a few different reasons why we were on the Washington-Oregon beat, is because we were told that before the UCLA-USC story broke on June 30th, 2022, because we were the ones who broke the USC story. So in those, on March 31st, 2022. So between that time and June 30th, we were being told about Washington and Oregon being the next ones. They might not be able to swing it in at this time, but it's going to happen down the line. So we knew that. So all this stuff about Big Ten did not expand with Washington and Oregon at this time, so therefore they're never going to. We knew that wasn't reality. Fox Sports wanted Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten. The Big Ten Network's going to sell in Washington and Oregon. Oregon is a brand multiplier. The presidents eventually are going to get what they want. Maybe they get a Stanford, but you know what? The Big Ten really wants. They really want the Southeast. They want it. Okay.
And I remember I'd been a little bit critical yesterday, but now looking at it, I'm starting to see a little bit of seeds in at least 4 teams. And that's kind of interesting to me. I still am of the mindset, I read the terms of like the grant of rights. If you were to do buyouts and stuff like that, you could get in the 9-figure range if your Florida State alone. But if you get 7 other teams to go with you, that grant of rights becomes void, and then you got a whole nother issue on your hands. So I'm starting to see the light on Florida State a little bit.
Yeah.
I still think it'll take a little bit more, but I'm starting to get with you on that. There's like a few teams I want to keep my eye on in the ACC that I think are really going to dictate the trend going forward. Like we all know, Florida State, Miami, Clemson, North Carolina, those schools, realistically, they could leave whenever they want, right? Like they could dip whenever they feel like it. They got the resources for it. The schools I'm interested to see are the ones that might be able to leave, but it's not as much of a guarantee. The biggest one I've been keeping an eye on, or been trying to keep an eye on, I don't know if there's any pry-in or if there's any sources on this. I'm interested in what Georgia Tech does, personally. I think they fit right in with the Big Ten. I don't know if you'd disagree with that.
I'm not a big Georgia Tech guy to the Big Ten because a lot of people disagree with me. Georgia Tech's a great university, and of course they're in the perfect spot. But because they are such the secondary university in that market, that the Big Ten usually does. Well, they don't do that. They grab the
And I only thought that just because the Atlanta market, Big Ten. Imagine having a school where the SEC hosts their championship game.
But
what?
Yeah. But if the unthinkable happens, if Clemson actually comes with Florida State to the Big Ten,
that would be mind-blowing.
That would be mind-blowing, and Clemson is 25 miles away from the border of Georgia. So I know they're two different things. I get it. I got yelled at yesterday in the chat. I get it. Mm-hmm. But still, you're sort of in that market.
I'm going to throw out I might throw out two conspiracies, and I know I'm going on time, but I'll try to throw out a couple conspiracies.
Got it.
I think the Big Ten endgame is obviously Notre Dame, right? They want Notre Dame more than anything.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about Boston College?
No, that's not going to happen.
No? Okay.
No. Now, if Boston College wants to take Boston University and come on into the Big Ten hockey conference, the door is wide open. Wide open.
Maybe
but not for a full membership. What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just along the lines, it's just, what was I going to say? Louisville and Pitt, I can't see Pitt being a Big Ten school. I think those two would be likely to depart for the Big 12.
Yeah.
Because those two schools, like, if Brett Yormark, he's been prioritizing basketball heavily. If he wants a major basketball player, are there any brands bigger than Louisville that he could, left on the market that he could just easily get?
Yeah. Louisville would be targeted by Yormark. Absolutely.
So, my big thing is with the ACC, I'm starting to come to your side where I'm starting to see Florida State trying to leave. My biggest thing is that as a Nebraska fan, they gave me major 2009 Texas vibes, where Texas would just complain and complain, not really get what they want, and then when they end up getting what they want, they get that stupid Longhorn network that nobody liked, nobody watched that.
Yeah.
And then we decided to get out. When I'm glad that we got out, quite frankly. I don't want to go back to the Big 12 personally.
Yeah.
I like the Big 10. So, but
all right.
I appreciate the time. I love talking conference expansion, conference realignment. It was actually one of the last conversations I had with my dad before he passed.
Oh.
It has this stuff, you don't understand the work you do, how impactful it is to just regular people. Yeah. I've only seen your content for a week, but this really means a lot. Lucky I got to call in. Thank you, Greg.
You got it, brother. Thank you. Call again, please. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Great call. Excellent call. Wow.
Call from
Brandon.
Brandon is on the line. The floor is yours, good sir.
Greg, thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
I love your show.
Thank
I'm a huge college football fan. I've never followed the YouTube channel before. and now I find myself following you almost religiously. So
Thank you. I
for
appreciate
your
it.
show.
Appreciate it.
So I'm a BYU alum and a Stanford alum.
Ooh, got it.
And I can tell, and I live in Pac-12 country now. I live in the Northwest. And one commentary, so Stanford, they have great facilities. They're a great university, great academics, of course. But the fan support is borderline apathetic. Let me give you an anecdotal example. I went to a Stanford game one time with a group of friends. We were sitting in the stands talking amongst ourselves, and we look up, and next thing we know, the game had started. We could not tell the difference between pregame and in-game environment. It was so dead. I've attended games in almost every Pac-12 venue. And although it pains me to say it because I'm an alum, Stanford has one of the worst environments. They get as much fan support for sports like water polo and soccer as they do for football.
Yeah.
And, I can see why they may be attractive to the Big Ten, primarily because of their academics, their well-rounded athletic program. But, and perhaps to be paraphrasing what you've described, maybe they become, the punching bag. There can't be all winners. There has to be some losers. But they're not a good fit for anyone but perhaps the Big Ten, Pac-12 going away. Maybe after that, independence.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I could see them also being quite content with dissolving some of their major sports, just maybe supporting Olympic sports if they had to.
Yeah.
As far as fan engagement, I know perhaps the TV eyeballs wouldn't support it, but you go to Oregon State, you go to Washington State, and as a BYU alum, it pains me to say it, Utah, those are where the most passionate fans are.
Mm-hmm.
And Big 12 would probably be better off adding, in my opinion, like an Oregon State and a Washington State in terms of fan engagement and support over an Arizona. Get them into the Pacific time zone as well, which Brett Yormark says he wants. What, in your opinion, why is there no steam behind Oregon State and Washington State?
Because I think there's only so many slots that the Big 12 is willing to fill and that they can't economically fill with partnerships with ESPN and Fox, right? Because Yormark is not, he's not going to go past 16. The Four Corners schools was his target. I think he's going to get all four of them. And then he's going to wait for what happens in the ACC. So I just think it's a numbers game. And Oregon State and Washington State, unfortunately, are outside of what looks like what's about to happen. I don't think an Oregon State and a Washington State, with all due respect, has the same value as the Arizona schools, Utah, or Colorado. So they're just it's just it's a numbers game.
Yeah, I think you're right. From my firsthand experience, I just see a measurable difference in the legitimate fan engagement, and I realize that is not the same as what makes them valuable to a TV partner. If it was based on fan excitement and commitment, Boise State would actually be quite attractive, but they're in such a small market that they're probably even way further down the list than an Oregon State and a Washington State.
Yeah.
One last question for you regarding Utah. What being right in the backyard of BYU, aside from the value of that rivalry game, because they share the same market to some extent, although I think a lot of people would say BYU carries the Utah market a lot more strongly than Utah, plus a much wider net that they cast across the country. What does Utah bring that makes them attractive as opposed to going back to Oregon State? Why not, for example, Colorado, Arizona, Oregon State, Washington State, as opposed to doubling up 2 schools in Utah, 2 schools in Arizona?
I don't see nothing against Oregon State or Washington State. Even doubling up in the state of Utah, those 2 schools are not at the same level as Utah. In almost every respect. Utah is a growing university, growing research university. They stacked the stadium. They watch Utah football. People in Utah watch football, right? BYU, Utah. BYU has a little bit more, of course, of a larger bandwidth of fan bases across the country and in Mexico and internationally and everything. I don't want to disrespect Oregon State. Oregon State's baseball, man. You watch those fans in that stadium. Oregon State in the baseball, tournament and stuff. They're great fans, but without going in the rabbit hole of I'm not a chart guy. I'm not going to put up spreadsheets. Utah is clearly more valuable than the Cougars and the Beavers.
Well, you're probably right, and I trust your opinion. So I appreciate the insight. Thanks for taking my call.
Got it.
Greg,
Thank you,
love
sir.
your show.
Appreciate it. Great call. Got a couple super chats. Danny Wright Jr., Roadkill Rants. Thank you for your generosity to the show. I appreciate it so very much. I keep seeing that Stanford will not join the Big Ten if they have to share research with which the Big Ten requires.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan, can you hold on for a second?
Sure, Greg.
Thank you. Also, I see that Oregon has spent almost nothing on research. Does that affect their Big Ten status? Well, it does. I mean, it all is taken under consideration. But again, Oregon is right there with Washington as the next targets along the West Coast, as we've been saying for over a year at Peek Around the Corner. I understand all the arguments. I get all the spreadsheets. I know there are people who really love that stuff, but we can only report to you what we've heard. Many times over, Fox wants Oregon in the Big Ten if Big Ten can swing it, and there's a couple of hurdles out there, so that $150 million expenditures that the Oregon Ducks does every year, yeah, that's a mark against Oregon. But they are a brand multiplier. Fox Sports wants them in the Big Ten. An Oregon-Illinois game, an Oregon-Minnesota game, an Oregon-Rutgers game is going to get some decent viewership. They are a brand multiplier, and Oregon and Washington rivalry, again, that's important. And I think the Big Ten is going to spread those big rivalry games out throughout the season. They're not going to cram them all up in the last week of the season. That's my answer to that question. Thank you, Stanny. I appreciate the super chat. And it looks like I might have missed one. Cameron B. Thank you so much for your donation to the channel. Once again, the Big Ten has poached every conference except the SEC, but looks clean in the end. It's wild. People paint the SEC as the villain, but it's really the Big Ten. Good point, Cameron B. Big Ten is the villain. They are the great empire. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I'll briefly touch on the Pac-12 because Immaculate O'Brien brought me in. I mean, the issue is the message from the Big Ten is Utah and ASU, you better get off the pot and go now. Because they could have easily said Utah.
Hold on, Ryan. Hold on. Again, I apologize. Immaculate says the board is addressing the conference situation right now. So, Ryan, as you're speaking, I might just pop in and give the breaking whatever they're saying, okay? I apologize. I apologize. You continue on, Ryan.
There are two constants on this show. Mo and Vision always being put on hold, and me and breaking news happening when I'm calling.
That is true. That is true.
It happens all the time. But I think Cal and Stanford, Cal is to the Big Ten is what UConn is to the Big 12. I think it's a shiny object out there, but I don't think it's important. I think that they were explicitly mentioned, Cal and Stanford were explicitly mentioned because I think it's a signal to Utah and ASU not to wait around and just to go with Arizona. Like I said, the Big Ten can always evaluate this and come and look at this 10 years down the road. But right now, and I've said it for a million times, neither one of those programs has kind of the market presence or the national brand yet to really warrant Big Ten attention. Going back to Florida State, the mention yesterday of UNC being grabbed with Miami, I live in Virginia and I live in North Carolina, and I'm very, 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 very familiar with the political environment there. In the state of North Carolina, the two schools that have the most political power in that state are NC State and UNC. Wake doesn't have a lot of political power. And Duke, most of Duke's alumni are from the Northeast. That's why they affectionately call that the University of New Jersey Southern Campus. But Duke does have some power, and I think that NC State, Duke, and UNC might be a package deal. And I know for certain in Virginia Tech and UVA will be a package deal. I think if the Big Ten is able to nab Clemson and Florida State, I think the SEC has no choice but to take Virginia Tech, UNC, and NC State with Miami, and they might have to take Duke along with it. That would shut out the Big Ten from North Carolina and Virginia. It would give an expanded market for the SEC, and that would probably make the most sense. Along that point, I don't think anyone's beholden. I think we're going to get conferences above 20, but I don't think anyone's required to go to 24. You might have some be at 22. Like I said, those 6 ACC schools, that would put the SEC at 22. They may stay at 22. The Big Ten obviously could go up to 24, maybe 25, depending on how they wanted that to work. And the Big 12 could, certainly be 20 or something. But along the lines, I think really for the Big Ten, the big targets right now, I think for certain Oregon and Washington, and then 19 and 20 is FSU and Clemson. If Notre Dame comes along later, they might go back and they might revisit. They might visit Georgia Tech or Cal or Stanford. I think one thing is keep in mind. I think that Pitt, Louisville, and Syracuse would go to the Big 12, and I think that's pretty much going to happen. If Duke is available for the Big 12 to take, could you imagine the Big 12 with Arizona and then add Louisville, Syracuse, and Duke in basketball? The kind of power it would have over the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournament, and how they could leverage that to maintain a seat as a power 3 at the table in football.
Yeah.
I think that's the angle. I think that's the angle. With that, I'm going to let other callers call in. I appreciate everyone's comments, and everybody have a great day and great job with the show, Greg.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the phone call. Call again, sir. We're getting a lot of comments in the comments section about Florida State president. Talking right now, we continue to explore all those options. Florida State president.
Call from
Crab cakes and football.
Crab cakes and football. Can you just hold 1 second, please?
Always.
Florida State president. Our goal would be to continue to stay in the ACC, but stand the ACC under the current situation. It's hard for us to figure out how we remain competitive. Man, they're going to pull the trigger, aren't they? They're going to pull the trigger. They're going to pull the trigger. It looks like it before August 15th. Crab cakes and football. You might be getting two former ACC rivals coming under the Big Ten tent to play your beloved Maryland Terrapins. The floor is yours, good sir.
It just dawned on me when I started watching your show that somebody knows something. If they're already making these phone calls and re-engaging with the four schools out west, with the meetings going on today, and the person that the Big Ten hired to be their commissioner who has nothing but TV ties with a bunch of different organizations.
Yes, sir.
He knows the language. He knows the value. He knows what's at stake. If he's got some kind of promise or some kind of, wink, wink, nod, nod, and whatnot, and I think he's ready to pull the trigger. He's just waiting on most likely Florida State.
Dustin Pickman. Hold on 1 second. Dustin Pickman from the chat, I believe. This is the president. This is the Florida State president. I believe that Florida State will have to, at some point, consider very seriously leaving the ACC unless there were a radical change to revenue distribution. Holy smokes. The president went there. He went there in this meeting. Consider very seriously leaving the ACC. That's a shot across the bow. And unless there were radical change to the revenue distribution, and you're not going to get radical change. Crab cakes and football. I'm sorry. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Oh, no problem. Breaking news trumps me every time. And plus, I think we're on a 2-year window now. I don't think we're on a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, 20-year. I think we're down to 2 years because of the expanded football playoffs coming in 26. I think they want their 24 teams established, both the SEC and the Big Ten. And, the Big 12's pretty much relegated itself to a premier dominant basketball league, which I think is a great idea because they still have good football teams in there. And I just think they're on a 2-year escalation to get this thing done. So if Florida State comes, I'm still iffy on Clemson. I just don't see Clemson joining the Big Ten. I just don't. But if they do, then great.
Yeah.
And but let's just, for sake of argument, we'll just go there. We'll say Clemson comes, Oregon, Washington comes, Notre Dame comes. They're going to want to bring at least Stanford. Stanford's going to want to bring Cal, and that leaves one more entity out there, man.
Okay. All right.
So, and that helps Northwesterns, that helps the Purdue's, that helps the Indianas, the Rutgers, even Maryland, because let's face it, it's nothing easy anymore out there.
No.
And even academically, I think them institutions would love to have, somebody. Everybody. You don't always have to have the big brand. It's okay to bring in somebody who's not always way up there. If they bring something else to the table, and they bring the academics. So I think they look at it twofold, not just football, because it'd be stupid just to look through a prism. But I think overall, you got two good schools that, there's issues to work out, but academically they're elite. So I think the Northwesterns and everybody that's what they want in order to get their yes vote for expansion.
Yeah. Yeah, there's there might be some horse trading of votes going on within the Big Ten. It will go east, but we got to go west again. So a lot of horse trading.
Yeah.
All right.
But if You take Clemson out of the picture, which I think everybody agrees is not going to go to the Big Ten unless they're forced to. SEC might not want them because they're already into South Carolina.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, that's another pickup for Miami or whoever else. So,
Yeah.
all right, let me get off here. I need to go to the callers. And
Beautiful.
I'm driving, and I'm a truck driver, so I'm got to concentrate on where I'm going. So.
Got it. Okay.
right.
Great call, Terrapin. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Lonnie Goodman, thank you for your super chat. I appreciate your generosity. I know you had a comment up here. I think I might have lost it. Ba, 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 ba. And I think I've lost it. Kalen DeBoer at Washington was asked about everything and made a statement after practice this afternoon. That's from Rebecca.
Call from
Rebecca, go Huskies.
Oh, Rebecca's on the line. So what did the head coach say?
Oh, he was asked specifically about. I actually sent you it via DM.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so busy.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah.
He said on Colorado leaving. He said obviously impacts me and impacts the program. There's a part where there's nothing we can do, so just stay in their lane. But he said always rest assured that we have a great place to eat up that people are going to want if things would ever fall through with the Pac-12.
Wow.
And then they asked him about linear versus streaming, and he's like, I think streaming is certainly going to be the way of the future. And more as we go through these years, getting used to that. I'm probably a little more old school too. I like to turn on the TV and know what channel the game is on. But he didn't see a concern, and then he of course cited the fact that the third game of the season will be against Michigan State on Peacock. So he said it's not just happening in the Pac-12 with our talks, but other conferences as well. So, pretty in tune. He's
Yes.
pretty in tune with what's going on in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Washington. I mean, Rebecca. We've been saying this for months, right? About Washington and Oregon. We never walked off that beam, and because we knew it, or we knew that this was a strong possibility, it's going to happen a couple of months from now or 5 years from now. You know that your head coach knew it, right? Your president has known this. They've known this has been an option. Washington talked with the Big Ten in New York City. So Washington has known this.
Yeah, and Dr. Kosei just finished her time as leader of the CEO group a few weeks ago. So we all knew this was coming, and she knew numbers, she knew what was going on. There was so much that they knew.
Yeah, but and she was, none of these Pac-12 presidents were unethical, including Kase. Look, she didn't. I mean, let's be real here. It's not like she was getting decent numbers, decent projections from Kliakoff's negotiating staff, right? It wasn't like she was holding back. It wasn't like she was picking it apart because Washington had a chance to go to the Big Ten. She wasn't getting anything. She wasn't getting anything worth value. So she did not act unethical or anything like that. Go ahead, Rebecca. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I mean, Dr. Kosei she's a really smart, intelligent person. She has 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, and a PhD. She's not a dumb person. I mean, she's a very quiet, thoughtful person, and when she speaks, it's pretty loud. She's a little bit of she can be a little bit of a firecracker. She is a Cuban American. She has that in her. She's ready. She's she can do it when she needs to do it.
Yeah.
But she's been relatively quiet because her thing is not staying. She doesn't want to be in the limelight. And other Pac-12 presidents are talking and doing all these other things.
I'm sorry, Rebecca. Go on. I just saw something. I might have to break in. Rebecca, I apologize to the whole community. I keep butting in on your phone calls. Normally I wouldn't do that, but things are a tinderbox right now. Rebecca, keep talking. I apologize.
Oh, yeah. No, you're good. It's going to be one of those weeks. Everything's going to kind of light up. I think, like I said, she's got to do her. By the way, Dr. Coste's PhD is in psychology. Like, she can absolutely read a room. Like, she's not, she knows what she's doing, and she does lean on some people, specifically the governor of the state, who's a former college basketball player himself. Not at Washington, but at another school. He got his law degree at Washington. But, like, there are people that are leaning on, that she leans to in these regards when it comes to athletics. Specifically, Jen Cohen, the athletic director, they're kind of driving this. It's like Kalen DeBoer knows 100% what they're doing. Like, probably already been engaged, probably got briefed on some things and was told. And just like other football coaches, they're asking him if this would be a good idea. And of course, he's like, yeah, because I'm already trying to recruit there. And people don't know is like he's already started shifting their recruiting process to the Midwest. He started that as soon as he got hired. They managed to get two twin brothers from the state of Michigan to commit, who are D tackles, and this is their redshirt freshman year coming up now.
Okay,
and
I'm gonna break in real quick, Rebecca.
Yeah, break in.
Okay. Brett McMurphy tweets out Florida State's trustee Drew Weatherford. It's not a matter of if we leave the ACC, but how and when we leave. And there it is, Brett McMurphy's eye emoji once again, just like he put out a couple of nights ago, that I believe was about Florida State. It is going nuclear right now. It is absolutely going nuclear. Holy smokes. Wow. Rebecca, go ahead. Finish your call up. We got a whole bunch of calls coming in. I do apologize for interrupting you.
No, I'm just saying, like, all of this is starting to go exactly how people said it would on, like, Sunday. Rewind, everything they said is starting to go outside. The presidents obviously had just started to talk. It's 4 school presidents from what I was reading and everything, but UW reached out to the Big Ten about a week ago as soon as the news started to break that Colorado was going to go.
They reached out Wednesday, the day before Colorado made it official.
Yep.
And we said that 2 nights ago at Peek Around the Corner.
The reason why they were in that meeting before Colorado had their stuff, and Colorado blatantly told the presidents and chancellors, "No, we're not going anywhere. It's kind of a rumor." And then they were like, But Oregon and Washington both realized, and as well as the other schools, you're not telling us the truth here, because every single reporter in America has picked up on this. You guys are not telling the truth.
Yeah.
So when the news broke, they immediately were like, as soon as they got out of that meeting, from what I was told, the phone call was made.
Yeah.
Like early in the morning, like, hey, any chance?
Okay, then, Rebecca, we're gonna get more.
I gotta let you go.
Okay, thank you.
I know. I'm taking up so much time. Thank you so much. I just want to get a little tidbit of what happened. All
got it. No problem.
You're
no
welcome.
problem. Thank you. Call again, Rebecca. I'm sorry. We got so many calls coming in.
Call from
Shooter, Texas.
Shooter, Texas. Can you hold 1 second? 1 second. Absolutely. Immaculate in the chat. Multiple board members have spoken, and not a single one has said anything remotely close to supporting staying in the ACC. Shooter, Texas, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
Well, I think this Florida State thing sounds really interesting, but I think it's probably going to be a lot bigger legal battle than most people realize, because ESPN is going to be absolutely against it. They're just losing. They win nothing, so they're going to fight it. The ACC members, they're going to be losing big time, so they're going to fight it. So unlike what we've seen with these other moves, there's going to be a huge amount of pushback on this thing, and actual losers. Like when UT and OU left, they were going from the Big 12 to SEC, which is an ESPN thing. So, and the Big 12 was trying to negotiate with ESPN. So there was a reason and a motivation for the Big 12 to negotiate an early exit. But that is not going to exist here. And so I think this ACC deal is going to be a huge mess.
Yeah.
But the real reason I was calling actually was to talk about the Big Ten with Oregon and Washington.
Yeah.
And what I think is really interesting about that is, once again, thinking about it from a media partner point of view, where is the benefit to Fox? Because one of the issues that Fox has with the Big Ten is that they have that exclusivity window with CBS, I think it is, and NBC, and Fox can't put out content, Big Ten content, to compete with those windows. And so their only other option is to go put out Big 12 content or Mountain West content during those exclusive windows. Now, so if Fox is looking at this saying, hey, I might be able to get some of these Pac-12 schools to the Big 12, which gives me more options during those windows, but then suddenly the Big Ten says, no, we want those schools over in the Big Ten. Fox is looking at that saying, wait a minute, now I'm locked out of even more content. No. I'm going to pay more money to get those schools in, and then I can't use them when I want to, or I could pay a lot less and get them into the Big 12. So I think Fox is actually going to block the move of Oregon and Washington and these other schools to the Big Ten, because then they could get them for cheap in the Big 12 and they can use that content. And Fox is the big dog in the Big Ten contract.
Let me put it this way. We've been reporting for a year, even past a year, when we didn't have a YouTube channel, when we were breaking the USC story on our Twitter page. And if you go to the Los Angeles Times article that they did on us, Fox wants Oregon and Washington. They're not going to, they might pay a little bit more for Oregon and Washington. They're going to let somebody else pay for Oregon and Washington. They're going to let an Amazon pay more. They'll let NBC and CBS pay more because it's going to elevate their programming. And the Big Ten Network is going to sell like hotcakes in the state of Oregon, in the state of Washington, and Fox Sports owns 61% of the Big Ten Network. And then that's going to set them up for future growth when there is going to be more. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. So I don't think Fox Sports is going to pay a whole lot more for the addition of Washington, Oregon. I think it's going to be a lot of gravy coming towards Fox Sports with the addition of if they get somebody else to pay the freight, and I think it's going to happen.
Well, that would make somewhat of a sense. The only problem is it still doesn't solve that exclusive window issue. And I think they're definitely going to be trying to fill some Big 12, get some more guaranteed good quality Big 12 content, so that, because they don't get the first strike at the Big 12 content. That goes to ESPN. So the more they can pad more content in the Big 12, the better off Fox is with those windows of time. But I hear what you're saying, though. I agree. They definitely don't want to pay more money. That's for sure.
Yeah. Great call.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Have a good one, buddy.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thanks. Call again. Texas Shooter. Now, I find a couple comments here interesting in the comment section. Rebecca Salisbury.
Call from
Lewis,
can you hold for just one moment, sir?
Sure.
Rebecca says, Florida State trustee Justin Roth. A solution under the current ACC TV deal, very unlikely. Leads us to what's next. The alternative for us staying in this conference for the next 13 years is death by 1,000 cuts. Now, somebody else, Tyler Anderson, doesn't see how Florida State stays in the conference after this meeting. Somebody said something about we need Rebecca Salisbury. Waiting is not an answer. Also says Florida State needs an exit plan in the next 12 months. So that's an indication. If that is an accurate statement from somebody in the board, and if that's the majority, that would mean Florida State probably isn't going to withdraw from the conference by August 15th, and maybe by August 15th of next year. Remember, the Florida State Money Perch told us December 26, 2022. We reported to you in the live show that Florida State was going to be starting to make noise in public 2 months from now, and they did on February 24th. He also told us, and we reported, that this was going to go down in the first quarter of 2024. Are we back to this going down in the first quarter of 2024? Is that an accurate statement that Florida State needs an exit plan in the next 12 months? So, are we back to that? Let me know in the chat. Lewis, holy smokes, the floor is yours.
Well, incredible news all the way around. But it was, first of all, the Big Ten news was not a surprise. It was inevitable. There was no way that Washington and Oregon were going to be left with the Big 12. And they would have had to come to the Big 12 because the Pac-12 has no deal. And that wasn't going to happen. They're not the brands of USC, certainly they're not Texas, they're not Oklahoma, but they're certainly a cut above everybody else. So that's not a shock. The Stanford and Cal is a little bit more dilutive to me. I mean, I understand Stanford. I really don't understand Cal, but that's something that'll be up to the TV to sell the middle class of the Big Ten to vote for on those two. Otherwise, they might be left out. And I think in this situation, I hate to say it, but we're coming down to we have two power conferences, the Big 12 trying to stay relevant. It's time that some teams are going to have to get cut down. You hate to see it, but it's a cutthroat business. So Washington State and Oregon State are going to have to fall down to the group of five. And that's not ideal, but that's just the way it is because they have to move on. Now, Florida State,
yes, sir.
The brakes are going to get tapped on this. There's too many parties, too many legal wranglings. And also, I think the SEC is going to come in at ESPN and eventually sweeten the pot to keep the Big Ten from adding Florida State. They might not be so concerned about the Big Ten adding Miami. Miami's more of a Big Ten type of a school, and they don't have the huge alumni base. But I don't think the SEC is done here, just going to let Florida State and Clemson go. Florida State and Clemson belong in the SEC. They're a better fit for the SEC. They have the right atmosphere for the SEC, and that's really where they should go. The money has to be there. And so this tapping of the brakes and waiting a year or two, in addition to giving some time, is fine. And the other thing I'll say, I'm not going to say too much more, is that the damages here are interesting because there may not be any, or very few schools might be damaged, and maybe they could be made whole with a lot of money. Because if some schools have to go to the Big 12, the money is about the same as what they're getting in the ACC. It's not a situation you have with Washington State and Oregon State where they could really stand to lose a lot. Now, the damages will be less because their TV deal's so minimal that they're going to go to the Mountain West and maybe get $10 million instead of $17 million to the Pac. So the damages for, let's say, Louisville, if they go from the ACC to the Big 12, it's about the same amount of money. And so certainly with enough cash, but the cash you're talking about is still over $1 billion. The schools that leave for the bigger conferences, the Carolinas, the Miamis, Florida State, Clemson, they're going to have to pay $400 or $500 million to do so, and that money will be filtered down to the other schools. I mean, I think a deal could be made. It's just a year or two down the road. It's not going to happen this month, and that's where I see it going. So we're still a few years away from the big ACC breakup, but the Big Ten consolidation is real. My only issue is I'd be surprised if Cal and Stanford, maybe Fox and maybe TV partners will pay for that. But those two just don't have the same value, and that'll be interesting to see. And with that, the other thing is that I think Arizona is inevitably going. Yeah. As someone who's a West Virginia supporter, I'd kind of like to see Utah and Arizona State not be added. I think they're as dilutive to the Big 12 as Stanford and Cal are to the Big 10. They're dilutive. We don't need them. It comes down to TV partners. If Fox will pay the freight, I don't know the answer to that. But if they have to be left out, they have to be left out. I mean, it's just unfortunately the Big 12 is going to have a hard time keeping up with the top two, and they may face a day someday when the top two will run away. And that brings me to my last point. Notre Dame is not going anywhere, and I'm kind of hoping. Oh no, I don't think they are.
I know. I know you do. I know.
They have so much money. Yeah. Money's incidental to Notre Dame. Yeah. Money, but if they stay independent, they keep the top two from starting their own playoff, their own division, and cutting off everybody but themselves.
Yep.
And if Notre Dame, you can't cut out Notre Dame. So as long as Notre Dame stays independent, it kind of keeps the door open for the Big 12 and really for the Group of Five to get into that playoff. So, and I think Notre Dame sees that as their role, their holy role in the sports. They can afford to do it because they're Notre Dame. People are going to show up at their games no matter who they put on the field. It's a great atmosphere. I don't think they're going to the Big Ten ever, or at least not in my lifetime, not in the next 20 or 30 years. I know people say otherwise. We'll see, and we disagree. But that's it. Great show, Greg. Have a great day.
Beautiful, Lewis. Thanks for the great phone call once again. Tyler Anderson, the chairman of the board, the man who was with who had the mask on, the garnet and gold mask on at the balcony of the Holy Smokes Theater. He took it off last night. Peter Collins, we are going to come back to you with this topic very soon. Tyler Anderson, capitalize the word very, V-E-R-Y. Holy smokes. So now we're back to, are they going to officially withdraw from the ACC by August 15th? Are they going to do it by August 15th, 2023? Give me a Y. Yes, they're going to. Or give me an N. No, they're going to. Maybe they do it next year. Y or N in the chat. Y or N. Give it to me. Y, yes. They're going to do it. They're going to withdraw from the conference before 2023. Or give me an N. No, they're going to wait next year or the year after that. We're getting a bunch of Ys. Secret Agent, John Teal, William, Tumasta, No Bunga, Craig Perch, John Bennett, they're all Ys. They're almost all Ys. There's a holy smokes. We do have an N from our Nagad. We have another N from Cool Dude 1173. But there's a lot of Ys. There's a lot of Ys. Holy smokes. If you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Smash that like if you like college football the way we love college football. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to make a donation to this independent Rebel Outpost college football channel, hit that $sign, put a donation in. We'll get to your comments as soon as possible. We do not have YouTube, what do they call, memberships on this channel. We don't do anything like that. We can't do it on this channel because when we have intel, we got to pop in. We got to tell you about it. We gave you some intel last night, the night before. We continue to give you the peek around the corner. And I just can't have different stratifications of whatever you call it. I got to be able to say what we got to say at the time that we have it in the best way possible. So we are completely reliant on donations. So we thank you so very much. We appreciate it. Wow, I just lost a whole bunch of... I got to get back in the comments section. I am way behind. Someone is giving me a heads up on something here. Let me take a look. I'm going as fast as I possibly can. Okay. I don't know why I'm laughing. I should not be laughing at this. John Wilner, Mercury News. John Wilner of the Mercury News. Due to massive cash being bet on extinction, we have temporarily suspended wagering. As you know, John Wilner has had a line out there. Okay, hold on, everybody. I got it. Just pause. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I apologize for that. Sorry about that, guys. Ooh, look. Woo! I'm way behind. No, not a bathroom break. I take care of my 92-year-old father and my 90-year-old mother, and I've got them on camera. And I don't have any VA. I don't have any nurses in today, keeping an eye on them. There's something I had to take care of. So, okay, we're back. What are we talking about here? I lost my train of thought. Was somebody on the line and I missed something? Oh, John Wilner. Obviously, John Wilner now believes that the Pac-12 is about to implode. And I think that has to do with Oregon and Washington and Arizona State. The Monty Show, Arizona State and Utah are in discussions. Yeah, it's just a process now. Just a process. Yeah, why don't you call back in, Immaculate? Do I have the phone lines open? I don't even know if I have the phone lines open. Yes, I do. Give a call back, Immaculate. Yeah, that McMurphy stated the Florida State trustee said they need an exit plan in the next 12 months. So again, that means that they're not going to put a withdrawal notice in by August 15th, right? Right? Ron Lowney's saying Florida State's gone by the 15th. There seems to be a little bit of a mixed thing here. So again, Immaculate, give us a call, 763-260-1333. Anybody else, give us a call. The chairman said they're coming back very soon.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, what do you think? There seems to be a little bit of a discrepancy, a little bit of a mixed message. You know, somebody's saying we need an exit plan within the next 12 months, but then again, they're putting out a lot of smoke that they're going to do it before August 15th.
I do believe, I'm also watching Twitter, watching particular few people who are, I've never seen this much direct reporting on a Board of Trustees meeting.
Yeah.
Where you've got these sports media folks just sitting on the edge of their seats, just typing out this quote after this quote and this tweet after this tweet. It's blowing up Twitter. But one thing that Nicole Arbach said is that what the precise wording was that they need an exit plan by 12 months, which means if you're wanting to be out by 12 months, you need to do that now. Which means if you want to be out by next year.
In other words,
now.
Okay. In other words, you need to be out by July 1st, 2024. So that means you got to get out now.
Yeah, and you have to, if you're going to do that now, you got to do it by the 15th.
That's why. Thank goodness the chat room is explaining that to me. Immaculate is explaining that to me.
Yeah, I'm 95% they're doing this by the 15th.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Now I'm with you. I slid it back a little bit after reading the chat, but now I understand that 12-month thing. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, they're doing it now. They're doing it now.
The crazy.
And Immaculate, they're doing it.
12 months, not 2 years.
Yeah, Immaculate, and they're doing it now. So that means they must have a landing spot.
Uh-huh.
And it seems to be the Big Ten, because the SEC, I think, is going to get a little bit more messy, right?
I'm blown away by this right now. I mean,
yeah.
First you start off by hey, we're buying airplanes to fly around the country with. And then you're bringing in this thing, which is not a line item. This is what I was kind of, secretly hoping for, was that at the end of this, they would throw this in, and they did. They gave the AD and the president just open talking to tell these guys, and that was not on the line's business initially announced. So,
wow.
But clearly they had let some folks know through private lines like this is going to be happening.
Yes.
As War Chant made a post at the beginning of this, the people sitting in the room there, they had like a media or like a sitting area outside of there. Was like one civilian, one police department person, one other employee, and then 7 media were there live. And then you saw on Twitter how many people were there. So word went out, and this was a trustee board that was in lockstep. There was some variance in their messaging of what to, how to do this and what to be mindful of, but I didn't see one single person say, if there's any possible way that we can make this work in the ACC, not a bit, not a smidge. And some of them were saying, we've been working on this for a year now trying to figure this out, and it just seems like there's no other answer. That was said multiple times. So
Bill G with a great comment. It's really surprising, but I could see the Big Ten deciding not to pass on a shot landing Florida State and Clemson that they may not have later.
Yeah, and if you have to take Clemson has been my problem. Like why Clemson, really? But if they're the only other one that's ready to go when Florida State's ready to go, well, okay, I guess we'll do what we got to do because what you want is Florida State, and if you got to get one more with them, and there's only one other one that can do it, and welcome to the Big Ten, Clemson. But as Conundrum says, they could transfer that out for any other school that wants to, right? Like, he's saying Clemson equals Notre Dame.
I'm trying to find something here. Hold on. Yeah, Stuart Mandel seems to be thinking that it's Florida State to SEC. He put up a tweet. Every one of these Florida State trustees is echoing or even going farther than the president in supporting this threat to leave the ACC. We have to do what it takes to compete. None of them have mentioned how they would get out of the gore and whether they know that SEC would take them. So Mandel is completely avoiding the Big Ten. Of course, nothing, I don't want to take a shot at Mandel, but man, he did not have his pulse on what was going on in the Pac-12. He may be doing the same thing here with what's going on between Florida State and Big Ten, which I think is real.
To me, I would be probably still in the position I was before, where I'd say I just can't see SEC and ESPN letting this just fly. But I don't see a point in buying these airplanes if you're just joining the SEC.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking $9 million from the boosters, which could go do a lot of other things. And there's clearly a little bone thrown to the academic side of the school because one of the planes they said is a 6-seater, which that is not for very many sports. That's for university officials who, would go to a conference over here or a meeting over here. That's like, hey, look, here's what you get. And then the other plane, the guy's like, I've never known you could get 2 planes for $9 million. He questioned it. And then they're like, well, we're not looking at the planes you're getting. So, I mean, this was kind of this funny moment in the board. But they already had their eyes on another plane. So if one's a 6-seater, the other one, I say that's for teams. And,
Yeah.
It's just, you don't need to take a plane from Tallahassee to very many other SEC schools.
Yeah.
So it's definitely in preparation for the Big Ten, whether that means the Big Ten or whether it's something that we're ready to do it.
Now we had a leak today, obviously. Reported that Oregon and Washington are being looked at once again. Once this Arizona thing drops, it's really gonna intensify. so that was, and then Big Ten potentially going to 20 schools, and then Brett McMurphy saying that the Big Ten's keeping their eye on what happens if somebody leaves the ACC. My question to you, Immaculate, and my question to people in the chat room: will we see any type of leaks, any type of messaging in and around this, what's going on at Florida State, from the SEC? And I'm not talking directly from Sankey, but, some reporters saying something, what the SEC is thinking about in this situation. Are we going to see some sort of leak in the next 24 hours coming from somebody in the SEC to one of the national college football reporters?
I can't see any reason why there wouldn't be. If you're the SEC, you can't just sit back and watch this happen. You can't. You just can't. That doesn't mean that maybe they don't have a shot because FSU knows what they want. But I just cannot see SEC and ESPN not doing this, especially when you have such a large propaganda arm, and I'm using that term in a friendly way.
Yeah, so am I.
ESPN. Yep. To have so many people there who can talk the point. I don't see how you don't. I mean, this was so public, right? This was so public. You have well-known national sports media people just tweeting play-by-play from a board of trustees. Have you ever seen that happen? I've never seen it. Like, this was as public gets. So
yeah.
If you don't respond to this somehow, then you're just rolling over. You're saying we don't have a shot at this.
Or
we don't want to look like we did take a shot and lost.
Or maybe we are not thinking about this correctly, in the sense that if SEC has gamed this out, which I'm sure they have, and knowing that the Big Ten's going to eat at some point, maybe the SEC is just loading up on their North Carolina target, Virginia Tech, take over those two states. And not go South Carolina, not go Clemson because you got South Carolina, not go Florida State because you got Florida. You're trying to increase the markets within the Southeastern Conference. You go to Virginia and North Carolina. Maybe the SEC says, okay, we're not going to be able to keep Big Ten out of the Southeast anyways, so why don't we go for the large states of North Carolina and Virginia Tech?
That would be a very strong move, a very confident move that we don't have to fight for FSU. We'll take everyone else, and you'll be on an island. Like, if FSC goes hard for Miami, so they have if Florida says, we don't want Florida State, but we'll take Miami. They're way down at the tip of the peninsula. That's an interesting play. I think FSU is okay with that if Clemson goes along. And I could see why Clemson maybe would rather prefer the national one rather than the SEC because, to be honest, in the SEC, they're on a level playing field with those schools. Whereas in the ACC, they always had that easy route to the postseason, so that's a great recruiting advantage. In the SEC, people are going to have different opinions on it. I don't mean to spite them, but you're in the SEC now, and you're recruiting equally against those schools. So I think that's maybe a smart move for them if they can get into the Big Ten along with FSU to do that. So, you could be absolutely right where it's UNC, it's Miami, it's Virginia Tech, maybe Virginia too, because I think Virginia and North Carolina are tied.
Yeah.
I would even go so far as to say North Carolina State. I think that's an underappreciated brand. Their research, when we looked at the AAU stuff that just happened, Virginia Tech and North Carolina State were the two public schools with the most research that didn't get picked. So I don't see why North Carolina State isn't a good pick for the SEC too. But that you could be dead on with that, and they're looking past Florida State and Clemson and saying,
well, I have no intel on that. I'm just throwing that out there. If Miami of Florida does not end up in the Big Ten, I am taking the big L on that because I've had the Miami of Florida as the chalk, as the one ACC school that is locked into going to the Big Ten 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 years from now. It looks like I might be dead wrong. So,
You know, to add to that, I had Miami picked as the one to go alongside Notre Dame.
Yeah.
What happens if they grab Miami? Is that one less positive for the Big Ten in getting Notre Dame to sign on? That's an interesting, counterplay right there.
Yeah.
I don't know, but there was some report that there was something that came out on an ESPN show about UNC Miami last night, but I looked around, I couldn't find anything about it. So if it did, it was, someone was green-lighted to say something real quick in response, but they never put it out.
Yeah, I couldn't find it either, so I don't believe that was like an official leak, from the SEC.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for something from the SEC. They got to say. I mean, of course, they're not going to say anything out in the front of the microphone, just like the Big Ten. We're talking about a leak to a national college football reporter. Put out some messaging from the SEC. What they think about all of this. Who are they targeting, or what they're going to plan on doing to counteract the Big Ten.
Yeah, if I could say something here real quick.
Yep.
I don't have like a personal bias that I'm pushing here. As someone has pointed out in chat, as a big fan of Iowa, this maybe isn't necessarily great for them, but that's not what I'm doing here. It's just trying to read the situation and see what's going on. I don't have any decision in this at all. In terms of, the question that went along with that was, why do the airplanes mean Big Ten more than the SEC? Well, it's the amount of usage that it would get. I think that's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of people who, this is going to cause a lot of feelings and reactions out of people. So I just want folks to know who are watching, it's like, I don't have, this isn't like a bias that I'm pushing. It's just trying to read the situation as it is. And if it goes for or against me, that is the way it is. I don't have any say in this.
Yeah. Got it, Immaculate. Thanks for calling again. I'm guessing the Holy Rival show, you guys are going to be going on tonight, right?
Yep, I was going to ask if I could mention that real quick.
Go ahead. You can always mention that.
It's going to be on tonight. I do believe he's looking at 8 Eastern.
Got it.
There's going to be a new person coming on, someone that you know from the community around. There's going to be a University of Washington focus, at least for a good part of the beginning of the show.
Beautiful.
I'll go ahead and say it. Sergeant Pickles. Sergeant
Beautiful.
Pickles.
Yep.
And then there's another person that you are very well acquainted with that I won't say their name yet.
Got it.
But you've had them call in multiple times, and they're another Washington person, and they'll be on in the near future after that, I do believe. So
that's
we will be
outstanding.
on tonight. Would love if you stop by. If not, understandable. It's a little bit later.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to stop in there, we're really going to dive in hard on this. Try to keep it very sanitary when we come on here and not go too wild and crazy with the theories. But when we get on there, we might get a little bit nuts. So if anyone wants to have a little fun in that regard, please do stop by.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun.
Beautiful. Great call, Immaculate. Thanks for your time.
Thanks again. Love calling in. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you. Wayne Garbach says Florida State and Clemson have the opportunity to stand out more in the Big Ten than the SEC. They have a unique geography in the Big Ten and will likely win more games too.
Call from
Bobby.
Bobby's on the line. The floor is yours, good sir.
Big day, Greg.
Yeah, huge day.
Big day.
Holy smokes.
Holy smokes. It is a true Holy Smokes day.
Yes,
if there is a Holy Smokes day, this is a Holy Smokes day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I don't think enough people are talking about what the ACC's response to this is going to be. Because I'm not sure the ACC is just going to crack open the way people think it, because the ACC has two things the Pac-10 didn't have. It has a GOR and it has a media deal.
And it has and it has the ACC network.
And it has the ACC network.
Yeah.
And it is entirely possible. The only two teams that could wiggle out right now are the two that have been rumored to be trying, which is Clemson and FSU. And they then, I think, could have some means to put a freeze to this, at least for another 5 years. Just because, say these guys leave, and whether they go SEC, Big Ten, and the payment, I've seen the payment to get out anywhere from $300 million to $700 million. Let's put it right in the middle at $5.
Yep.
Which combined between the two is a cool $1 billion paid over 10 years.
Yeah.
Just a simple $1 billion, Greg. You got that in your back pocket,
yeah,
don't
right.
you?
I barely got a quarter, but go ahead.
Well, they pay that over 10 years. Which means the schools that are left are going to be getting an extra $100 million divided among the schools that are left. That's $8 million a school, and you've just raised the amount of money you're getting per year from the conference with the schools that have, and maybe ESPN saying we don't want any more schools to leave, throws in a couple more, say, well, you know what, guys, we'll raise what you guys are getting by $2, $3, $5 million a piece. And now you're making more than the Big 12. Now you're in that middle space between SEC, Big 10, and the Big 12.
Great comment. Yep.
And at least for 5 years until the end of that, until you can see the end of that, those payments coming, and then they can also, they say they come to some resolution. If I was the ACC, I would come to resolution with this sooner rather than later, because then I can go to the remaining members and say, you know what, we didn't push this as hard in the courts as we could have, but if anybody else tries to leave, we will. And you just kind of lock them down. You lock down your remaining members. If Notre Dame wants to leave, there's not much you can do about it, but those remaining, 12? You can lock them down, or make it really, really, really hard to leave.
Yeah. Great point.
I don't see this just cracking open. All these things about this team going this way and this. This is about two teams right now, and these are the two big dogs. Who else has the resources to do this in a serious way besides them and Notre Dame? Who else has the resources to try? Especially if the ACC says if anybody else tries to leave, we're going to go whole hog. Mm-hmm. Good luck. I mean, it's with a lot of the realignment, you've seen it, Greg, where all of a sudden people start throwing schools this way and that way and the other way. You can do that with the Pac-10 right now because they've got nothing. But with the ACC, everybody's talking about what is the SEC going to do? What's the Big? What is the ACC going to do? And this is kind of where my thinking goes. And I don't see this just cracking open. This is for me. They have the means to put the screws down after these two. That's just my way of thinking on that.
No, they might be able to crack down and not have, Florida State being able to leave the conference and get some sort of agreement with the Big Ten. That's a story to itself. Let's just say Florida State leaves and they still have all these legal issues with the ACC.
Yeah.
What type of agreement would they have with the Big Ten? What type of agreement would they have with the SEC? I think it's with the Big Ten, though.
Can they have?
Well, they can. Look, there's nothing. Now, they might get sued and they might lose everything, but there's nothing stopping. Look, a grant of rights does not stop a team from leaving a conference. It makes that team not valuable to another conference that would want
because they don't control their own media rights.
Yeah, but what if Fox is saying, hey, we're going to get this much money from somebody like Amazon for Oregon and Washington. Washington and Oregon takes a discount. There's $20 million left over there. Big Ten does have a war chest. We'll peel off another $25 million there. Florida State's going to get $45 to $50 million, a check from the Big Ten for the next 6 years. We know that we're going to make such and such amount of money having the Big Ten network at a dollar or more per rate, per subscription in the state of Florida, and Oregon and Washington. And suddenly it's costing Fox Sports maybe, or maybe, I mean, there is, and then all Florida State home games have to be broadcasted by the ESPN family of networks. So Michigan versus Florida State.
Well, I don't know that they have to be broadcasted, but all the money goes to somebody else. It doesn't go to Florida State.
It goes to the ACC, and then the ACC distributes the money to the ACC schools depending on the bylaws, and the bylaw says withdrawal member, Florida State doesn't get any of this. So I mean, it is, Florida State could be playing in the Big Ten next year regardless. But it's all those legal risks in the background.
It's what you build a war chest for.
Yeah, that's what you build the war chest for. Jim Williams tweet, sources from 2 Big Ten schools have confirmed the conference is talking about pushing membership to 20. 20, but I don't know if
and where does that number come from, Greg?
Huh?
And where does that number magically come from? What teams might we be thinking of when we think 20 right now?
Oregon, Washington, Florida State, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Clemson.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. And the other play I think the ACC would try. I don't know if they'll be successful, but again, they're fighting for survival just like the Big 12 is. Maybe they then, with their money higher than the Big 12s, go after a West Virginia, go after a Central Florida, go after a Cincinnati, and or go after Connecticut. They played around with Connecticut before to cut the Big 12 off of the East Coast. If I'm the ACC, I don't know if I can get any of those teams out of the Big 12, but I go after one of them. I only need one.
Now, what John Teal in the chat room, thanks for your super chat, John. UConn, Memphis, or Tulane to the ACC at half price?
And like I say, the play here is you lose these 2 teams, but you firm up the East Coast against the Big 12, getting into and so then the Big 12's play to me has to be they would have to go after San Diego State, even if it's not for next year. You lock them up for the year after because you want to be in at least 3 time zones. And if UConn disappears, that gets very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, West Virginia is kind of barely, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're not on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, this is just where I don't think we've heard how the ACC is going to respond.
Yeah.
How the SEC responds. The SEC, I think, will try and make some kind of play behind the scenes for these 2 teams if they can. But the SEC has some disadvantage. One, I don't know if their war chest is as big as the Big Ten's. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it is, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing going against the SEC is the whole reason Florida State's doing this is they're tired of ESPN as kind of a slave owner holding them down.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why this Big Ten, Florida State Big Ten thing, I mean, it is a strong possibility. And that's another...
Well, and when Florida State says we want... he openly talked about playing a national schedule. Hello, the SEC, if there's one thing they have not, and openly said they are not doing, is going outside of their geographic area. And what means do they have to do it? They don't.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the other day, I think, on one of if the SEC wanted to do it, how would they? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, and he openly, like I say, he openly talked about that in that conference. He talked about playing a national schedule, having it being a national brand.
Yeah.
There's only one conference in a big football sense that's looking to do that right now. You know, people have talked about the future being streaming. The immediate future right now is this national brand thing. That's the immediate future.
Yeah.
The Big 12 is trying to go that way, probably with the direction of Fox behind the scenes. The Big 10 is trying to go that way, definitely with the direction of Fox behind the scenes. That's the immediate future, and this is what's threatening the ACC. This is what's killing the Pac-12. Is the national. This is the immediate future. It's not streaming. It's national brand.
Yes, it is. Yep, you're absolutely correct.
And the only thing I'd throw in there to respond to Soap, who talked about how you do scheduling, your Gophers would not go 2-10 every year, Greg.
All right.
Because what they will do, if they get a 20 teams or 24 teams, they will adopt an NFL type scheduling. You will have a division with your local rivals, but then after that, it will be strength of schedule scheduling. So that if you had a rough year the year before, you get an easier schedule. If you had a great year, then you get a harder schedule. And that keeps the networks happy because the teams that are doing well play each other the next year, and those are big games. And if you get other teams, then they have a chance to and every team at some point will need an easier schedule where they need a reload. I mean, USC has had it here recently. Michigan's had it. And that will keep everybody happy.
I think they're going to have. I think they're going to have to go to divisions again. And
you go with those pods where you keep your division rivals, but then after that, you can do strength of schedule scheduling, and it would keep so you both get your local games, but then you're doing strength of schedule. So if you need a weaker season, you get a chance to go 7-5 or 8-4. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And you don't have to have the divisions that Soap talked about, the upper tier and the lower tier. You don't have to do that. You just go. You just the NFL does it, and it works very well.
Yeah.
I heard that thrown around with Kevin Warren because he was an NFL guy. Yeah. That was being thrown around then. Anyway, that's what I got, Greg. It's just some ideas to throw out there to the community.
Got it. Beautiful. Great call. Thank you so much. Call again,
Thank you,
sir.
You do great work, Greg.
Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it.
God bless tonight.
God bless. Wow. Okay, we've been on the air for 3 hours. We're going to have to shut it down. Is there a chance we come on tonight? There's always a chance. Keep your head on a swivel. We want to thank everybody coming into the chat. Generous donations, great phone calls, great comments. I thank you for your patience when I had to leave the studio to take care of some family situation. Thank you so very much. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button and share the video with your family and friends. We're going to stick with this story. It's a big story. The ripple effects are enormous on a grand level, on a grand stage. And I never thought this was going to happen in August of 2023. We believed when we got those 3 phone calls in early December and we reported to you on December 26, 2022, Florida State was going in this direction. We thought it was the first quarter of 2024. Things changed. Things sped up. Clemson, Big Ten. We'll see what happens. SEC, what's their response? ACC, Jim Phillips, the commissioner, ESPN. My goodness. Holy smokes. I'm seeing some late super chats. Thank you, Bill G. Thanks for the update, Godfather. Thank you, Bill G, for coming in once again. Your donations, we appreciate it so much. John Till, Pods plus 2 rivals. So Notre Dame can play USC and Stanford yearly. John is thinking about the Irish. He's thinking about the Irish. We got to close it up here. Wow. Thanks for coming on in. We're going to be going live tonight or tomorrow. We put out an episode earlier today talking about, the title was Florida State, Whatever It Takes. And I think it's becoming quite obvious that Florida State is going to officially withdraw from the ACC by August 15th. Now, that is a holy smokes. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.